All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. The Noble Brainiacs, episode 3. This is Mike Wesson. I got my man T Dot with me in the building tonight,
All day.
and we are the Noble Brainiacs, and we just wanted to bring you guys a fresh episode, man. It's been a while, and life happens. Things, people get busy, things happen, and it was because we've been moving and working, so we decided to bring you guys something fresh, something new, and just kind of give you our insights and our opinions on a few topics that we want to discuss tonight in episode 3. And we're first going to start off with the Charleston shooting and the famed murderer suspect in Dylan Roof. And you know, we as of late in this country, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of negativity towards African Americans, and I think that the perceived notion is that there's a sort of a background movement to start a race war in this country, and something a lot of people don't want to really partake in at this time. And to be quite honest, it's really not beneficial for any race, whether it be black, white, Hispanic, Asian. But most importantly, it kind of seems that just from my perspective, that the world is attacking um, my black people. So, TC, I don't know what some of your thoughts are, but I'll let you, you know, eloquent yourself and just let people know how you feel.
I actually can't help but to relate. Um, I noticed when you were talking about you gave a quick synopsis of the races. You didn't say anything about the Caucasian race or the white race. Nothing against the entire race in a general sense, but um, this race owes a lot to pretty much every other race that encompasses America, which is the Latino race, the Mexican race, the Asian race, and most importantly, the African Americans. Um, then again, we need to take into account that times have changed. They're not the same, but they also repeat, and that is the real factor. It's not as of recent that things are like this. It's a repeat. It happened years ago, like many years ago, if not uh, 45 years ago. It's happening right behind our backs, whether we know it or not, no matter what race it is. But mainly based off of this topic, the African American race. A lot of people, mainly Fox News. I don't like Fox News, but instead of making it into a racial aspect, they made it into a theological, religious aspect where it was a war against Christianity, and they were trying to turn it against the fact that everyone who's Fox News is biased and prejudiced, and they had a coincidentally, not even coincidentally, ironically, they had a black preacher um, as a guest on the show to speak on the attacks on the religion of Christianity in America, in the black community, and of course that wasn't accepted too well. Mainly because it was bigger than that. It was way bigger than that. Obviously, because of what Dylan Roof protested, what he spoke about, and if he didn't say anything about religion at all. So for the media to take uh, an approach that was so similar to and so close to propaganda as far as Fox News goes, it was expected. It was as expected from Fox News. It was shocking, of course, but it was expected. You can't really be too shocked by Fox News, but I'm getting off on a tangent about Fox News. I feel the same way. I feel like every other race is being attacked inside of America, um, and it's up to us to either be aware, take notice, or prepare ourselves for whatever is to come.
And, it seems that every race is under attack, but it seems that really we're under attack more than any other race. And
Absolutely.
I mean, it just seems that every race has a rapport with Caucasians to a sense where they can kind of get afforded certain things that most African Americans couldn't. And a lot of it also, has to do with within our own communities, how we've lost a sense of relatability to each other
Hmm.
in certain aspects. Certain people get to a certain status, they get to a certain level in life, and they decide to leave the people behind that they grew up with, and nothing wrong with that. But you also have to make sure that you might leave those people that you used to hang out with because they don't know any better. But it's always good to reach out to the ones that don't know any better. You can help
Yeah.
mold and help shape into the people that we need to have around, to sort of keep our community alive and keep everything uplifted, and sort of fit for ourselves. I think the thing with these events that have happened within the last few years, we've always had hate crimes, against us, or acts of terrorism against, African Americans and even all other races for that matter. But it just seems that in this case, we need to unify together as a community and understand why these things are happening. Start pushing for change, start revolting, start uprising against some of these crimes of, you know, hate, terrorism, and start really getting a sense of what we need to do to take back the peace in the community and civilization areas. A lot of people are making this a race war, but it's an act of terrorism. But if we don't acknowledge these acts, the race war is going to end up continuing and continuing, and there's going to be a lot of turmoil, a lot of hatred against, uh, people of other races because hey, we're always looked at to the race for everything. I mean, let's just be honest. A lot of our vices and droughts today have come from us basically either exuberating these acts to make them cool, or basically creating these things from the ground up. I mean, we look at music, for example. Everybody loves rap music now. All of a sudden, and at one time, rap music was basically an art form to expression, and now it's
Exactly.
basically a get rich quick scheme. And even with movies and theater, a lot of times we have people just getting
Damn.
into these now to get money when a lot of times these were an expression of self and an expression of art as well. And we're not getting afforded these opportunities as some other people equally have been afforded. So we just need to kind of get an understanding around that. And I know I'm kind of going off topic of what we were talking about with the church shooting, but the funny thing that was interesting, the interesting thing that I've heard about that is that he goes, you guys are taking over the world and you're raping our women. And, I laughed at that because, you know, you were raping our women for years.
Yeah,
After you guys wouldn't be here if you guys should rape our women. So, it's kind of funny to have those sort of sentiments kind of
it,
echo.
it's weird. It really is weird because uh, the white women or the white biddies, as most black men would call them, actually flock to us. It's not like we go. It's not a poaching thing. And speaking of the word poaching, it's not us going onto their land looking for their um, chattel, and I use that for a reason. Looking for their white women and trying to put sperm in them. The white women are leaving that area and coming to us now because they're searching for something different. They've been searching for something different for about, I don't know, 25, 35 years now. And now it's a problem. Now it's rape. Now it's they don't want it. But if you really took the time to ask a white woman or the white demographic, white female demographic about it, they actually prefer it. They actually enjoy it. They actually want a black man because they're so tired. Now, I'm not going to say it's 100% of the population of the female demographic, but it's a high percentage, and they want to try something different outside of their race. Um, and if you're upset about that, then that's something that you have to deal with personally. That's really just how it boils down. And I really find an issue with the phrase terrorism. I don't like terrorism. I don't feel like this is an act of terrorism. When during the social rights active act, bricks were thrown through windows, notes were left in mailboxes. That wasn't terrorism. Those were hate crimes. How do we lose hate crime and define it within terrorism? Terrorism, I'd say years ago, was constituted against us, the Americans, versus other countries. When a terrorist attack was done on America, it was an act of terrorism. Any act within America is not terrorism. An American against an American is not terrorism from just recent experience. That is a hate crime. So what was done in the Church of Charleston by Dylan Roof, I prefer to refer to it as a hate crime instead of some act of terrorism, because there is no, hasn't come out yet in the media, but there's no trace with him with ISIS. There's no trace with him in Al Qaeda, and per George Bush Jr., everything that's related to anything over in India, and Iran, or any place like that is an act of terrorism. Anything acting against America from the outside, from external, is an act of terrorism. So if what Dylan Roof did was terrorism, the Boston bombing was terrorism. The what was it in the school years ago? The shooting in the school with the one
Columbine.
Columbine, terrorism. No, it is not. It's not terrorism. So I don't feel like any of that should be. I feel like they're using that terminology so we could take it lightly, so we could be okay about it. I feel like we spend more money sending food, and don't get me wrong here. Other countries, third world countries, need food because there are acts of God that happen, tsunamis, things like that. We do need to send food to help out, but we have so many starving areas in America. Detroit is in a just a poverty state as an area, as a whole community, and uh, we don't do anything to help them out as a country. We don't send food to them. People are sitting on the side of the road or under bridges and things like that. People are in crack houses to live, not to do crack, but to live. This goes on of other areas. We have Chirac. Chirac is bad. Chirac is terrible. But only, people who are philanthropists of some kind get recognition for doing anything in Chirac. You don't see FEMA helping out in any of these areas in a very prominent effect. But if there's a tsunami somewhere else, don't get me wrong, they need the help. But if there's a tsunami somewhere else, we take food and everything else that we need here and send it over there. So I don't feel like there is any terrorism within America. There's terrorism against America, but there's no terrorism within America. The DC sniper was not an act of terrorism that they've revealed it as far as the media goes. I mean, do you feel the same way? Could you see what I'm saying about the usage of the putting power into that phrase or that word and making it into something it's not?
I see where you're going with that. If you look up the definition of terrorism, basically it's any act of terror against a set number of people. So it doesn't necessarily have to result to nations or countries. Columbine definitely wasn't an act of terrorism. That was just two kids acting stupid and unfortunately having to fire off on 17 innocent and really growing kids, and that's kind of heartfelt in that. But you think about even to the Oklahoma City bombing a few years ago. That was definitely an act of terrorism because he was anti-American. Um, I think this Charleston Act is an act of terrorism. I don't want to regulate terrorism just to any attack, against us, because we, truthfully, have acts of terrorism on our own. When you look at all these drones that we're sending out in these countries and trying to assert our U.S. dominance or our kind of world leader status upon these other third world countries. So, I want to say that this particular incident is an act of terrorism, but I don't want to throw around that word loosely either. But I will say that we should call it an event what it is. Um, it can be considered a hate crime, but it can also be considered an act of terrorism. And I personally would consider an act of terrorism just because of the fact that he was, had apartheid and white supremacy, and it was some of those things. Those acts of anybody in any confederacy or white supremacy mindset are acts of terrorism against our people because they don't like our people. They don't think we should be existing. And to be quite truthfully honest, they're just more so scared of the fact that their people are dwindling away, uh, one interracial relationship at a time. So we kind of have to be cautious of that, and and we still have remnants of white supremacy within our our electoral offices and our White Houses and our Supreme Courts and our law enforcement. So even our school systems, for that matter. So we're battling against our own terrorism here. And to your point, even with the stuff that you mentioned that was kind of off topic about the taking care of our own domestically, that's always been an issue.
Always.
That we should, everybody should kind of help out. This is going to Chirac and going to Detroit, and even hell, going to places like some of these other countries, these God forbidden, farmlands that don't have a large populace, and they need economic growth, they need development, but of course people aren't going there, and then these companies are building large factories and large plants, getting people to move there without any growth. But then what are they doing with that? What are they doing with their produce? I think it's interesting that some of these companies have taken their operations and shipped them overseas. I was glad to read a report earlier today about Adidas trying to develop plans to bring production back to the United States, which I think would sort of help them a little bit. I think people kind of think of Adidas as a laughing stock when it comes to sports apparel, but giving people jobs in the United States is one thing that'll help. It's one thing that'll help put people in jobs, that'll help them get income, that'll help them be able to put food on the table and to pay their bills and to not necessarily avoid debt, but at least to not get in as much debt as they would taking out credit cards and loans and basic building up credit lines that they don't necessarily need just to survive and sort of live a certain lifestyle. Our views and our way of living in this country is kind of skewed compared to other countries. And if everybody was more economically feasible when it comes to making decisions, and instead of trying to compete with other people living within their means, we would all be a better place. But the adults have to be held to a certain standard, but the kids in this area are the ones that need to be protected. And I think that should be the focus in these areas, in these major cities, these urban areas in these cities that have poverty. I mean, they're just riveted in poverty day in and day out. Education, these schools closing out left and right. Kids don't have any place to go, and they don't have any future. And we need to more so sticking together. We also need to understand why we're letting our communities rot, and then in a few years becoming melting pots for economic boom and success, not for our people, but for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about President Obama's eulogy for the for the passing of everyone at the Charleston church. The 6 dead who passed away due to Deliveroo.
I think that's Obama at his best. I mean, though that'll be one of the moments where he'll be remembered for in his presidency for doing something that way. He's always a good speaker. I mean, he's always been a very intelligent, very intellectual, well-spoken individual. Um, and I think at this point in time, I think a lot of it was based off emotion. I think that was the first time I think I've ever seen him speak with passion, where he wasn't reading from a cue card or he wasn't reading from a written piece of paper. He basically was just saying whatever he felt in his heart at the time, in my opinion. And I think he did a great job, man. What are your thoughts about it?
I actually loved it. One, because of the how genuine it was. Like you said, it was full of passion. It's full of empathy. Uh, and every great speaker is known for that one speech where they kind of transcend from where they're typically known from speaking. Um, you have all these speeches from Malcolm X, you have all these speeches from Martin Luther King, and not necessarily black people. You have all these speeches from, wow, list goes on. I'm not going to go through the list. But nonetheless, the one that stands out from Martin Luther King is the I Have a Dream speech. Um, the speech from Malcolm X is a speech right before he was killed. He was really in the moment. He was really giving them the best of his emotions and his logic. And I really feel like Obama gave. I could really, when I watched it, I really felt like mentally he took the piece of paper that was on the podium and balled it up and threw it away. Mentally, that's what I saw. He didn't really do that in real life, but I saw him do that. Not saying there was a piece of paper there, but I felt like he just got so in the moment. He said, "Forget this. I'm going from the heart," and he just went off. And I felt like that was great. I feel like because if you couldn't respect how genuine he was as a wordsmith before that moment, you had no choice at that point. He gave you everything he had. He gave you a bit of preaching. He gave you a bit of political aspect. He gave you a bit of just sheer wordsmith. I mean, he put words together that you wouldn't think would be married the way they were, and he really drilled it home. So I really loved his eulogy. He said, of course, in typical political fashion, he knew the preacher, which I'm not doubting he did, but the way his speech was delivered, it really seemed like he did. And that's the key to a good speech is
Yeah,
captivating and capturing your crowd.
I kind of feel like he probably did have some sort of connection with him. The guy was a South Carolina senator, so that was a pretty huge reason why he probably knew him and knew of him and knew his work because of the work that they've been doing there. And I think that he said some things where I think that everybody should pay attention to closely and kind of make a mental note of. And I think the biggest key that I took out of that was he was really urging us to unify together as a community, not just the people in South Carolina, but I think just I don't want to race bait, but basically our community in general, the Black community, and even every other community as well too, um, to sort of weed out these types of people like Dylan Roof and you know making our world safer, but just a little more enjoyable, and not have to pretty much live in fear, not necessarily have to live you know, in empathy and not have to live in regret. Basically, just this is all to live together. And it's all living. in peace and harmony for once. And you know, those roads will never happen until, of course, you know, the revolutions when we televise. But we definitely some things we need to take away from that. And speaking of unity and harmony, I know one of the next topics we're going to talk about is the gay marriage law that got passed recently through the Supreme Court. And no, I want to get your thoughts first before I even chime in. Um, how do you feel about that particular win for the LGBT community, and how do you think it's going to impact future generations going forward?
First of all, I would like to say, I can't even say welcome because the black race is within the LGBT community. But as far as being accepted and being counted as a part of the world of equality inside of America, I do want to say welcome to them. Having rights, responsibilities, different laws set just for them, I feel like that's great. That is really great, and it really shows how we've progressed and evolved as a country. Because I mean, if you think about how many transitions we've gone through from so many different restrictions and laws, whether it be race related, sexual preference related, vice related. I mean, people couldn't drink alcohol in the prohibition era, and
Yeah,
now
like,
it's okay.
yeah,
So I mean, it that can be this legalization of gay marriage can be constituted as or related to just that, as being a part of the evolution of America. And I'm actually very happy that they're a part of the evolution of America. And um, there's no more hiding in the corner or, um, what's funny? Actually, I just had a conversation with one of my coworkers because we were talking about I have to get a clearance for work, and I have to get a passport. And he talked about a time where he didn't really have a passport or his birth certificate, and he used his marriage license. And a marriage license is a sign of American citizenship. You can show American citizenship through your marriage license. Well, if you're a part of the LGBT community before last week, you could not. You could not use if you couldn't find your birth certificate or your passport, you were a catfish. Basically, you were not real. You did not live in this country. Um, but now that is not the case. They can get governmental clearances. They can get military clearances. They can get IT clearances now, based off of their marriage. If they can't find, of course, your passport or your birth certificate, you can bring in your marriage license, and it is completely accepted. Now, I've been reading a lot of blogs, and I've been seeing a few things where people have lost business, like photographers and fashion designers and makeup artists and things like that. People that have just entrepreneurs, really, of the LGBT community have lost clients, um, only because people found out that they were of that, community by just them being excited about having that right now, and their clients not knowing it, and then their clients finding out and saying they don't want to put money towards something they don't believe in. I feel like that's kind of harsh. I feel like that takes us back to the times of segregation and oppression, of not necessarily just a race, of just a way of being for another person, another group of people. And I feel like um, uh, goods and services should be traded no matter what race is. When the Pilgrims got here, they traded with Native Americans. Of course, that has its own history with it, but originally the barter system is the barter system. I mean, originally, a barter is a barter. You know, if I trade something with you, you trade something with me, we're good. We're equal. But I don't feel like that should be the restriction in today's society just because someone lives a different way than you. Um, a lot of these people in the LGBT community are pretty well off financially. Um, so does that mean people don't want to take their money if they want to spend it? That's not fair at all. Because if that's the case, how did they acquire it? They obviously got it from someplace, from you maybe, um, probably obliviously. But how do you feel about their new acceptance into the American legal system and everything else?
Well, it's definitely and definitely about time. I don't see why. It's funny how this country we tend to be political, but we tend to use religion when it's beneficial to make laws and restrictions. And you know, we have always classified relationships as being man and woman, and you know, even before those laws were created or invented, there were same sex relationships, same sex marriages, same sex relationships that had taken place. And it seems that now the world, right, like you said, has evolved to a more accepting position of these relationships and of this group of people. And it took a little bit of time, and I think the thing that we all have to be careful is that, you know, this is a group of people that need a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like any other minority group in this country needs support. They need support because they are outnumbered, and they need a lot of people to just be understanding of their situation, their way of life, and not be judgmental. Nobody wants to be judged if they're an alcoholic. Nobody wants to be judged if they're a pothead. Nobody wants to be judged if they're a fat ass. Um,
Nobody.
we don't want people judging us for the things that we do that are not acceptable to other people. So why would we judge them? And to speak of my own personal experience, I have a cousin who, or a few cousins that are, but and if they ever watch this podcast, I'm sure they probably won't say anything. But you know, I know it's hard for them to live in that particular vein of existence because they're scared of what other people are going to think of them, or they're worried about what people are going to say, and how it's going to affect the people that they love the most. So I think in this case, we come a long way, and this is a group of people that need a lot of support. Um, and I'm glad now that they're going to be afforded the opportunity to live together legally and also be able to help the other legally. These companies now have to rearrange their benefits now where basically not truly, but now people can actually say this is their spouse, this is a significant other. Health insurance is also a big thing for the LGBT community, and people don't have health insurance because one's the breadwinner of the family, the other one's a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, or one person's like you said, self-employed or a self-entrepreneur. They don't have health insurance. Now they actually have the ability to do so now through the channels of marriage,
Yeah.
which most people in the country have been, have been and are being afforded at this point in time, and also their family as well too. People have kids. They now can have their kids can have health insurance now, where it's and it cuts down the cost of having to do with private insurance and having to do that because a lot of these people, like you said, they have money, getting money from somewhere, but we don't really know the true cost of their lifestyles because of the things that they haven't been afforded, and the things that they've been prohibited from enjoying and indulging in. So I think this is a good step forward, and hopefully that the LGBT community is proud and they're ready to be accepted in the world. But I will say that they also should be careful because even with, like you said earlier, people are against the African American community. There's a lot of people against the LGBT community as well. So
you want to know what I want to add into this stereotypical conversation that we're having? There's one that has been fighting and wasn't accepted until Y2K and or 2000, the year 2000, and it was the nerd and or geek population. And at first, I was thinking while you were talking, like I couldn't imagine how it would feel to hide in or hide something away from a mass population or society. And then I thought, hold on, I've been a geek. I've been a nerd. I'd rather not be called a geek. I don't like that. But, um, hello?
I'm still here.
Okay, it froze up. Anyway, I've been a nerd before, and Revenge of the Nerds came out in the '80s and things like that. But it still was not accepted. It was a comedy. It was to be laughed at. But when everybody needed the internet, when everybody needed technology, when everyone needed smartphones, when everyone needed this and everyone needed that, uh, that's when system administrators, technicians, and nerds ruled the world. And they still rule the world, but they just do it in the background. They don't. They're not in the forefront. Nonetheless, I'm getting off on a tangent. Um, I thought for a minute I wouldn't know what it would be like to hide something as far as anything to everybody. But intelligence was one thing that a lot of people I know and I relate to a lot of people with that is hidden from a lot of people. Just how smart you are, or what you do know, or what you may not know. Um, and with the LBGT community, they have to hide who they are after hours. You know, they don't really talk about who they associate themselves with. Like going to the mall, just hypothetically, on a random Saturday with the person they're intimate with, that person being of the same sex, they have to pick a less populated mall if they're insecure about it, of just being judged and things like that. So I feel like the nerds can relate to this success because we had a TV movie called Revenge of the Nerds, and that's all we got before year 2000. And it's been 15 years, and we've progressed for 15 years, excuse me, to become what we are, to become, the financially comfortable, to have TV shows, to have movies on a mass scale. The number one hit comedy in America is Big Bang Theory, and that show is all about nerds and nerdology and things like that. So um, I feel like shows like the L Word, and which was you're familiar with the L Word, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be hidden on hit movie channels and have people have to pay extra just to see it. Now it'll be on regular television, so people are okay with that, and again, a congratulations to them for making it this far and now being able to get married and show your rights and wear a ring and do what everyone else is doing. Again, equality wins in this scenario, and that's good. That's really good as far as
Equality is always in any scenario when it's
indeed,
supported.
indeed, indeed. Equality is very important.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for episode 3 of the Global Brainiacs podcast. We will be back, um, within a matter of time, we'll do another episode. So you guys can kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy this one. Rewatch it, replay it at work, school, wherever you are, at home, at your barbecue, do whatever you need to do. Just make sure you tune in, stay tuned, and we'll be back soon.
All right, everybody.